Good afternoon. I'm going to wait until we're going to be live streamed. We are on. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Leduc County Regular Council meeting of Tuesday, February 8th. We have an agenda in front of us. Mr. Coleman, there have been a few changes. If you could run through those, please.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. So no additions from administration. We are removing or actually requesting to defer the public hearing for bylaw 22-21, the alternative bylaw, advertising bylaw. And there's a report in the agenda speaking to that deferral.
Okay, thank you. So we will look at that when we get to that item. Councillor Vandenberg.
We will be looking at that when we get to that item that's being deferred.
Yes, so there's a report on the agenda.
For
the public hearing
for
itself
deferral
has been removed from the agenda.
Okay. So we are talking about it or we're not talking about it?
We are talking about the issue, but we are not holding the public hearing.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? All right, so it is not then a amended agenda just yet, correct? Okay, move as presented. Councillor Lewis. Sure. All in favor? That is unanimous. We have meeting minutes of our January 25th regular council meeting. Looking for someone to move those as being an accurate representation. Yep, Councillor Wanchuk, sorry. All in favor? Thank you very much. Councillor I was going to call you Councillor Blas, sorry. We've changed seating and it seems to be creating an issue.
I think we should put the nameplates
right in front of me.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. All right, public presentations. We have an opportunity at the beginning of every council meeting for anybody in the public who'd like to make a presentation to council on something that is not on the agenda currently to do so. Is there anyone here that was here to make a presentation to council? I am seeing no one. Thank you very much. For B, staff introductions, Mr. Broadbent, is he here? There he is. I didn't recognize you with your mask on.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Dwayne Eagle. Dwayne Eagle is our grader operator foreman for Leduc County. Dwayne has been with the municipality since May 2009 and has recently accepted the position as our grader operator foreman. He has been a grader operator for those 13 years in our municipality in Division 1. He's an exceptional operator. I went through our grader operator training. Is a huge advocate of consistency in road grading, and Dwayne really will be the one overseeing our 10 Leduc County grader operators and one contract grader operator to ensure that we are meeting those KPIs that are in our gravel road strategy. So I'd just like to introduce Dwayne Eagle to our member.
And congratulations on your promotion, Dwayne. I had the opportunity to meet Dwayne early this summer and talk to him about some issues that we had out in Division 5. You're easy to talk to. You're a great listener, and I think that's a huge benefit to the position you're moving into. Councillor Smith.
Congratulations on the promotion. I'm just sorry to see though the time you've been out there. We have a great operator now that's doing a really good job. Just so you know, I've received about 13 calls because it's a different grader operator. Why is this happening? It's different. And it's a really good grader operator. But again, just so you know, you have left expectations in Division 1 of what they're looking for and how you left your finished job. So sorry to see you go in that capacity with the Division 1 grader operator, but I am thrilled to see you as a manager.
So
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Broadbent. On to Mr. Mariglod. Somebody new to the county? Oh, says Mr. Mariglod. Mr. Downey. You guys look the same to me. Oh, there, it's Dean. Okay.
Pleased to introduce Trevor Bosma. We've been searching for the right candidate for the EIA supervisor lead for the water and wastewater contract that we secured with them last summer. And so we fortunate enough to get Trevor here. He comes with a wealth of experience over 20 years in public works and utilities, infrastructure, has diverse experience with leadership and project management and water and wastewater operations. So forward to him helping us take the workload off of shared responsibility that we've been sharing for that contract. Aaron Gallagher stepped in as the interim supervisor when we promoted her to the waste management supervisor position. She also supervised the EIA operations. And I'd like to thank her for all her effort. She did an outstanding job. Very happy to have him on board here.
Well, welcome, Trevor. And because you are new to the county, I have a Leduc County pin for you, and hope you can wear it proudly. Representing our county, we know that that's a focus. Congratulations and welcome. All right, looking at my agenda, it is not quite 1:15, so we will go down.
Actually, Madam Chair,
Sorry?
because it's not a bylaw,
Oh,
we can
right.
deal with the report.
Right, it's just a report. My apologies. Thank you for catching that. And Ms. Klamosko, bylaw number 22-21, alternate advertising deferral request. Go ahead when you're ready.
Good afternoon, councils. I have a recommendation in front of council to not open the public hearing for the alternate advertising bylaw 22-21 and defer the hearing to March 8th. So at the December 24th, 2021 council meeting, a report was presented for council to review, and they gave first reading to the bylaw. Given first reading of the bylaw was passed at that meeting, a public hearing was scheduled for today. An administrative omission was made in the notice of the bylaw as per section 606.15 of the Municipal Government Act. A notice of a bylaw proposed to be made under subsection 1 must contain a statement of the general purpose of the proposed bylaw, the address or website where a copy of the proposed bylaw may be examined, and an outline of the procedure to be followed by anyone wishing to file a petition in respect to the proposed bylaw. The advertisements that were published in the following newspapers that I have listed in the report for the 2-week period in January did not fully meet these requirements, as noted above. So as such, administration recommends that we defer the public hearing to March 8th to allow for a new notice to be advertised in the same newspapers that were listed in the report for the weeks of February 18th and 25th. Also, we will update the project webpage to reflect the new dates and deadlines. The additional comment that I would like to add was that any individuals that had registered to speak at the public hearing today had been notified of the change, so an email had been sent. And then also for the electronic email comments that we received on the bylaw, we also followed up with emails to those individuals to let them know of this proposed change.
Thank you very much. And thank you. Unfortunately, with the omission, we want to ensure that our bylaw is meeting the MGA requirements and that we are following the rules to as they're outlined. I appreciate the request for deferral and open the floor for any comments or questions. Councillor Vandenberg.
So the only question I had was, that's why I was asking if we're going to get a chance to talk about this, is originally had our members are in the community had till February 1st to respond. And you say that these deadlines will be updated again. Can you tell me what the new deadline will be in preparation for March?
So in advance, we'll follow the same type of deadline that we did for the February hearing, where typically we'll put the deadline to be that week before, so that when the report is written for the agenda package, we have that information to be able to put it into the agenda package. However, I just want to note that any person that wants to speak to the bylaw that comes to council, even if they haven't pre-registered, will be allowed to speak to in public hearing. So there's no requirement. While we ask for people to pre-register, just allows us to plan the agenda and prepare for the attendance. People that come to the meeting that day will be given the opportunity to speak if they wish to.
Thank you.
Hey, any further questions on the request for deferral? I am seeing none. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Can I just add one comment? I just want to make it very clear to all individuals that have participated in the engagement process. So I've received emails, telephone calls, that I want to ensure them that all of those comments and feedback that we have received will be included in the package for the March 8th public hearing, so that they know that they don't have to send comments again, that those still will be brought forward to that March 8th public hearing.
Perfect. So the package from today will carry forward with any additions. All right. Motion on the floor.
Yes, to not open the public hearing for the alternate advertising bylaw 22-21 and defer the hearing until March 8th would be my motion. And I will also say that I've had really good feedback from people in my division on this. So I expect a little bit more and some good wholesome conversation on it.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
I've received probably 10 emails. Do you want those forwarded, Renee? The emails that I've received as well?
Yes, please
Okay,
forward them
I'll
to
send
me,
them
and
over to
we'll
you.
see if they have also emailed administration.
There's a chance, but there's probably a few
Absolutely.
that were exclusively to me. I'll send those over to you right away. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, so any other council members who received emails to forward them to Renee to be included in the package as input and feedback. Okay, motion on the floor to defer. Not seeing any further questions. I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Renee. On to 6A, I believe. Yes, 6A, which is Mr. Mariglod and Mr. Downey. Strategic Waste Management Plan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We've been working on the Strategic Waste Management Plan for actually over 2 years. We've held a series of 11 workshops with Council and worked through the priorities, the vision, I guess, in regards to, waste diversion and directives that Council makes as a priority. We reviewed all the programs and talked about the level of services and the implications for any changes. So I believe in September, we brought this to the last workshop, and you've seen a draft of it. There was a few comments at that workshop, and we have since revised the plan according to your comments. And so we are bringing it forward for council adoption. Excuse me. The plan is organized. The first section deals with the overview of the services at the start of the workshop process, kind of the current state at that time. Touches on the public survey overview. The public survey was a request specifically from council, and it ended up being very instrumental in all the discussions that we had for the different services. It added a lot of value. It took a significant amount of time to get that completed, but then we incorporated it in all the decision-making processes. The waste management directives, so just how the county developed the waste management directives, what the priorities were as far as the overarching priorities for waste management. And then the next section of the plan is the review of each of the services or the different programs. So that would include the curbside pickup program. There was a couple of workshops about that. The regional landfill drop-off program that was touched on in a couple of workshops as well. The transfer station programs, the eco station, and the agricultural plastic program. So all of those are, overview of those are all in the plan itself, as well as for each of those, it has the decision points and then the outcomes of what we ended up landing on. So appendices, we've included the solid waste survey results, the provincial and regional solid waste planning, which we had reviewed a couple times, and then strategic directions and service level. So the last two appendices are a good quick reference document for the different decision points and outcomes for the workshop processes. And so those are great reference for staff and for public and for council to refer to. So if there's any questions in regards to this.
So thank you very much, Mr. Downey, Mr. Moriglod. Thank you for your attention. As you said, I think we did 11 workshops on this. Council certainly has their fingerprints all over this document. We debated lots of the items. We tried to understand the problem we were trying to solve. And we believe that this waste management plan, or at least I believe this waste management plan, will help the county, help administration make decisions, be clear for communication to our residents, and certainly as a reflection of what we believe we need to do around our waste management. So thank you to both of you for your hard work throughout the workshops to get us here. Thank you. And open for any comments or questions. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. Just a comment to follow up on the mayor. Thank you for your work on this. We've learned a lot as council about how we move waste within our municipality and how important it is to actually do something with it. And the work that was put into this is incredible. And to see that some of the deliverables are already being met is pretty awesome to see. So thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Councillor Vandenberg.
So, and once again, thank you for taking our comments and our points of view into consideration. One of those for me was the whole zero waste thing. And we did talk about that at length. Zero waste, in my opinion, was an unattainable effort. But substituting that as you have in there by explaining what the circular economy is, which is a process in order to obtain a reduced or zero waste, that is more relevant to us in today's time and perhaps even into the future. So I do believe that this document does speak to that quite nicely so that people understand that we're trying to attain reasonable targets. The other comment I have is in your introduction, while we've got you here, you referred to the word sustainable or sustainability a couple of times. Can you explain to me what sustainable means? That is a very controversial term.
I guess you look at it from the financial end of things. So financially sustainable, and then the typical financial, social, and environmentally sustainability, right? So those are the three that you usually look at. Environmentally, what are we doing for the impact to the environment with our solid waste, with diversion, with all of our different programs? Are we respecting the environment and looking at the long term? And then socially, are these programs meet the needs and the desires of the community, right? And that's kind of tied into it when we looked at all the locations of the transfer stations, and should we be reducing the number of transfer stations or increasing them or reconfiguring them? So that's how in a nutshell.
So further to that, you know what I mean now when you put the word sustainable in, and I think that there might be an opportunity to discuss exactly what you just said, to put it in proper context, because anybody reading it, sustainable means, well, that means that it's going to cost me less money, or it's going to cost me more money, or people are not going to even understand, well, what is sustainable about waste? So just a thought maybe to have a narrative around that, to set proper context to that verbiage. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Vandenberg. I know I thanked administration, but I actually want to take a second and thank council. What's important to know about this plan is that it is a large spectrum from urban standards, which is somebody picking up my garbage at my curb, to what do I do with agricultural plastics? And all through the discussions, and I think that Councillor Lewis hit on it, we learn from each other. If you don't have an urban community in your division, you learned about those complexities from our neighbors. And I think that's really important. But this is a very, very broad, we have a very broad issue when it comes to solid waste. And I think that this is a great job covering it. So I just wanted to thank my council colleagues for bringing their perspectives that helped us understand the issues differently from each area that there are here. With that, I'm looking for someone to put a motion on the floor if we're ready for that. Councillor Balazer. We'll move that council approve the strategic waste management plan. Thank you. And open for comments, questions, or debate. Go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
So my comments around sustainability, are you noting that? Are you going to provide that in some capacity with this document?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, are you looking for a revision to the document or just when we roll it out, we would speak to that?
I would say that it's fair, just even if you roll it out, just to have that context there. Otherwise, I can't support the good work that you've done that we've participated in.
Yeah, no, we can further clarify that for sure during the rollout.
Thank you. And that's been noted by our administration, so we know that that will be part of the rollout. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you again.
Thank you. Awesome.
And this is the first ever, right?
First ever, yeah.
I'm
Right,
looking at my
thank you.
agenda, Mr. Coleman, where shall we go to next? I don't know who's waiting in the wings. If there's anyone waiting out there? Fire? No.
Another 10 minutes out, Madam Chair, perhaps
Okay.
we could have finance
Finance?
come.
Ms. Weiss is just
they're
across the
hall,
road.
so perhaps.
Okay. Opportunity to fill your coffee cups. I'll just do a little recess if you want. And for those watching, fill your coffee cup. Grab them up and let the dog out.
Waiting for somebody
Let
to
the
change
dog
water
in.
bottle and Larry did.
Are you going to round them up for me, Grant? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Weiss. We appreciate your always flexibility. I guess that's part of the thing about being the closest to council chambers is that we look at you and we need to do a quick fill-in. We appreciate it.
That's right. You're welcome. No problem.
We're just waiting for two councillors to come back from a recess to fill their coffee cups, and we will come back out of recess. Unless Mr. Bain is making it go on. Baby. Could send somebody else, but that's like a bad horror movie, right? Excuse me. Just good teaching skills. All right, going to come back from recess. And again, thank you, Ms. Weiss. Ms. Weiss, sorry, I mispronounced that, my bad. And on to 2021 year-end report for utilities. Whenever you're ready, my friend.
Perfect. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. So I am here with a recommendation to transfer utility surpluses to reserves. Each year, as part of the year-end process, we do a reconciliation of the utilities, both the water, the wastewater, and this year new to us was the solid waste curbside pickup component. And that reconciliation allows us to determine if there's a surplus or a deficit in each of those areas. So this year, it's my pleasure to say we do have a surplus in those areas, and I am recommending some transfers to reserves. So for the for the water component, we're looking at contributing to operating rate stabilization reserve of 27,000. That essentially is the interest component from our money that resides within the reserves. And the contribution to capital repair and replacement reserve of $1,170,403. This is the reason it's all going into capital, is because we put that new reserve policy into play where we have our minimums and our maximums. And so for water, we're fortunate that our minimums are met on the operating side. So for water, the entire surplus will be transferred to capital repairs and replacement. So I'll just speak a little bit to what makes up that surplus in water. So we had a budget of $495,587 to be transferred to reserves, and we're actually seeing just about 1.2 million, including that interest. So the largest contributor to that surplus is our industrial water as well as our bulk water.
Ooh.
So between the two of those alone, it was $550,000 of unbudgeted revenue there. So that played a big part in it. There was also, of course, some higher commission expenses, unbudgeted contract revenues, that type of thing. Are there any questions on water?
Any question on water or the contribution?
Okay. For
Seeing none, move on to wastewater.
Thank you. For wastewater, we were budgeting $290,744 into reserves. And this year we are seeing $416,072, a little bit of a surplus there. So our biggest contributor to that surplus on the wastewater side is the bulk water. And there was less repairs and maintenance on some equipment than was anticipated. So through all of that, there was also some higher consumption in the Nisku Business Park that played into that as well. So through the wastewater, it's based on the consumption of
Correct.
water that then flows through. So those reasons are why we had a little bit more of a surplus than what was anticipated. And on the front in the blue area there, we have it split down. Again, trying to meet those minimums and maximums and ensure that we're meeting that policy. So we're kind of putting a little bit in all sorts of little pockets there. Did you need me to read those out?
We have them in front of us, but what I will ask is if there's any questions on wastewater contributions. And again, it's important to have reserves in these areas for both maintenance and anything that might happen as an emergency, to be able to have that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm seeing none.
Okay, and then our final area is solid waste. So we were budgeting approximately 17,000 and change to go into reserves, and we're realizing a contribution of 5,224. That is just due to processing fees being higher than anticipated. So more volume going in, and so as a result, we have less of a contribution.
Okay, there is an economy of scales when it comes to these utilities because they are user pay.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Smith.
Again, I'd be prepared to move the recommendation today fairly lengthy. But again, I just want to commend finance for what you've done over the last 8 years with utilities, no reserves, basically skin of our teeth to, I think, a very good bottom line position. That you created. So for that, thank you. And again, I'll move the recommendation.
Mr. Coleman, do we need to read it out in its entirety?
Madam, because we live stream, it would be appropriate to.
We would like to listen to your melodious.
Well, thank you for that.
reading voice.
The recommendation today is that Leduc County Council approves the 2021 year-end financial transactions required as follows. Year-end utility approval of transaction A, water, Letter I, contribution to operating rate stabilization reserve of $27,134. Contribution to capital repair and replacement reserve of $1,170,403. B, wastewater, contribution to the capital repair and replacement reserve of $176,711. Contribution to the operating wastewater collection rate stabilization reserve of $32,221.78. A contribution to the operating wastewater collection, operating repair and replacement reserve of $93,035.09. A contribution to the operating Nisku truck station rate stabilization of $22,263.15. And a contribution to the operating Nisku transfer station operating repair and replacement reserve of $37,894.73. And a contribution to the operation of lagoon rate stabilization reserve of $16,051.74. And a contribution to the operating lagoons, that's operating repair and replacement reserve of $37,894.73. And finally, solid waste curbside pickup, a contribution to operating rate stabilization reserve of $5,224. Thank you.
Thank you. We need to have your voice on our website announcing things when people are on hold. On to you, Councillor Vandenberg, comment or question?
Yes, and perhaps after council spell on radio, not television, would be something that you might want to choose. But I do want to send thank you to administration on the contribution to the lagoons. They were forgotten for a while, and this council has brought that forward so that we're back collecting money in reserves for the ongoing maintenance and operation of those lagoons. So again, thanks to the administration for doing that work. And Councillor Smith, great job on reading out the motion.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other further comments or questions, but I do echo Councillor Vandenberg. Those reserves are critically important to the operation of the utilities, and I'm glad that we're finding ways to continue to keep them topped up. With that, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you and thank you again for your flexibility.
You're welcome.
I'm going to go to Ms. Haberland. So I think I'm going to go to 6C1, which is land use bylaw amendment, home-based businesses, New Sarepta, Hamlets. And thank you for coming early as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So administration bring forth to council on the direction of council from a January 25th council meeting where council passed the following motion that Leduc County Council directed administration to consider options for increasing the flexibility in the home-based business provisions in the land use bylaw to hamlets, particularly applying to the New Sarepta area with the focus to unlock potential startup business opportunities in hamlets. So administration did do a review of the municipal development plan, New Sarepta area structure plan, and the land use bylaw. And what we found within the municipal development plan that there are 7 hamlets within Leduc County, and New Sarepta itself is identified as a growth hamlet, which means it was identified as a growth hamlet due to its ability to provide municipal levels of piped water and wastewater servicing. It was identified for higher density and more mixed use growth at a higher rate, and will be developed as a full service rural community that provides a range of land uses, housing types, and rural services. While the hamlets of Beaufort, Kavanaugh, Luma, Raleigh View, Sunnybrook, and Telfordville, they will be developed as a rural communities that offer a level of service appropriate to the size and scale of that community. So within the municipal development plan, we did find that home-based businesses are supported and that they shall be secondary to the established principal residential use and should not detract from the residential character of a surrounding area. Home-based business shall not create a nuisance on the neighborhood or adjacent properties. And business development may be deemed incompatible for a residential setting by way of course, size, appearance, or any potential offsite impacts that shall be located in more of a comprehensively planned area that supports that use. New Sarepta does have an existing New Sarepta area structure plan that does govern that area. The area structure plan itself identifies land uses for mixed businesses, mixed commercial and residential. The commercial area does fall under Urban Commercial 2 District, which in time will be built out in accordance with the planned area. Just the map that I'm referencing is the New Sarepta area structure land use. The yellow is current residential, orange is mixed commercial, and purple is mixed business. So within our review, we then went into the land use bylaw. And the land use bylaw, of course, does pertain several provisions when it comes to permitted and discretionary uses. We looked at the home-based business provision itself. Back in 2016, it used to be home occupation. And then there was an amendment done to the land use bylaw that renamed it from home occupation to home-based business. At that time, we removed home occupation types 2, 3, and 4, and we replaced them with home-based businesses 1, 2, and 3. Home-based business type 1 wouldn't require a permit. It's a permitted use. It would be more somebody doing accounting business in their home. No client visits would be with a home-based business type 1. A home-based business type 2, which was put in as discretionary uses under certain districts at the time. It was added into the rural center mixed district, which does govern all the hamlets in the county except for New Sarepta. And it was put into residential estate and residential manufactured home district at the time. So through our review with the land use bylaw, we also found that the residential urban 2 district that was adopted with the New Sarepta area structure plan does not contain home-based businesses as a use for a discretionary use. So there is no opportunity for a landowner in New Sarepta to open a home-based business that would allow a client visit. A home-based business type 2 allows for client visits. Home-based business type 3 gets into outdoor storage, outdoor equipment. That would not be a recommendation on staff. From staff, it would be a provision that we add the home-based business type 2 as a discretionary use. Just to show you the land use bylaw districts that are up on the screen. Rural center mixed, which is, like I said, all the hamlets are rural center mixed, other than the hamlet of Luma does have a small industrial area that was rezoned some time ago to allow for some industrial, but there's several provisions already in the land use bylaw under discretionary uses that allows for a wide variety of businesses to open up within a hamlet. And of course, being that there's no planning per se of a commercial area in a hamlet, the person has an opportunity as a landowner to open a business right there on that existing lot, should they choose to convert or tear down a dwelling and now we'll, move it to a commercial venture. So with that, that's my last one. So with that administration, like I said, we did look at options of what the best option would be. And we found that putting in the home-based business type 2 amending the land use bylaw and adding it as a discretionary use within the urban 2 district, but putting a special provision in there that it is only applied to the new hamlet of New Sarepta, as we do have residential urban 2 district within our urban growth areas, and we would not want to open that door when we have urban growth and defined areas already for commercial. So it would be a unique situation. Of course, New Sarepta is unique due to the fact that it is planned and has an area structure plan in place. And it is a little different than the other hamlets that we have. Therefore, our recommendation would be that council provide direction to staff to bring forth an amendment for council's consideration, adding the home-based business type 2 into the residential urban 2 district, keeping in mind that with any home-based business type 2, there is only a 2-year approval should the person choose to apply for a development permit for that use down the road. This does not give permission for anybody to have the use. What it does is it gives them permission to apply for a use through the appropriate process of a development permit application.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Smith, microphone, please.
Thank you for your work on this. Actually, a really great report. Had a chance to go through, and I see that in the other hamlets, we have home-based business 2 as a discretionary use. So again, this kind of brings New Sarepta up. This came about from somebody, and I love when people want to be legal and want to do development permits and allow us to regulate them. So there is numerous people, one a dog groomer, one a yoga instructor that's not going to swamp anything, but it's kind of a gig economy. So just a question, if I could, on your recommendation, and again, in your report, there's a bit of a conflict because the recommendation says the council direct to do an amendment, but it doesn't specifically say to New Sarepta, which is in your report. Should that be changed within the recommendation?
Through the chair, my advice would be that when we bring forth the amendment for consideration, that we would just be bringing forth an amendment to council for consideration with that specific provision. So the recommendation itself right now doesn't have to actually specifically say that. It just would be in the land amendment.
Can I move the recommendation, please?
You may, if you
Thank
can
you.
read that, please, into the record again. We are live, so if you could read it.
Good afternoon.
Radio voice. Thank you.
Recommendation that council direct administration to evaluate an amendment to section 9.21.4 of the residential urban 2 district in land use bylaw number 7-08 to allow for the provision of home-based business type 2 land use as a discretionary use.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor, and I have Councillor Lewis and then Councillor Vandenberg.
Thank you. As part of process, anytime an amendment for a land use bylaw has come before council, it's usually been resident driven and there's always been a fee attached. Can you tell me how this one is different, please?
So through the chair, this is driven by council's advice and direction to administration. So therefore it was recognized by council that an amendment should be required to help initiate development within Leduc County. So therefore it's not individually landowner driven. At this time, it was directed by council because it was recognized.
Thank you. Councillor Vandenberg.
A couple of things. So in these hamlets to which we're speaking of today, there's a section in there that's referred to as discretionary use. Typically, the application for discretionary use also allows adjacent homeowners to participate. So that process would still continue with a discretionary use application.
Through the chair, yes, being that we are putting the use as a discretionary use, it does provide it actually requires adjacent landowner circulation, and therefore input would always be received during any home-based business type 2 application.
Okay, second.
Yes, when it comes to non-hamlet home-based, is there provisions allowing rural, urban, medium, high density, other country residential to consider home-based businesses as well that may be separate to this?
Through the chair, like country residential already has the home-based business type 2 as a discretionary use in the land use bylaw. They already have that opportunity.
And what is the official title for your rural district your Royal Oaks, your Vistas, your,
So through the chair, those are urban growth areas and they are residential urban 1, 2, and 3 and residential multifamily. Those would not be, they don't have any provisions that allow for home-based business other than a home-based business type 1, which is what we would see in any urban growth area. Being that we have a designed area that's more focused on, it's a higher density, therefore we wouldn't want to impede the neighbors because you're having such a high density and smaller area.
so there's no thought of entertaining a home-based business type 2 for those examples by planning at any time?
Through the chair, not at this time, however, with land use bylaw, if council chooses to, when we do bring these sections forward for under consideration, you can certainly bring that forth at that time and we can make those changes as well and look at the pros and cons regarding should we or should we not add it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the motion is on the floor for in evaluating the amendment for home-based business 2 in, and it would be applying to New Sarepta.
Yes.
And I'm seeing no more hands, so I'll call the question. All in favor? That's unanimous. Looking forward to the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are at 1:45 or a little bit past, so we will look at our public hearing. With that, I have some different rules. We have some other people coming in. Come forward, administration, maybe. Yep. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to call our public hearing to order at 1:47. My name is Merida Blanco and I'll chair this public hearing. All questions and comments are to be directed through me. Council is here to listen to the information presented and make a decision on the matter that is the subject of the hearing, which is the road allowance closure and land sale on Township Road 492. This is a formal hearing. It is not a debate. Everyone wishing to speak who has pre-registered will be given an opportunity to speak once to the matter as called on by myself, the chair. Each presenter must state his or her full name, rural address, their interest in the matter, including whether they are in support or non-support. Individuals who do not identify themselves will not be given an opportunity to speak. Presenters are asked to stay within a 5-minute time limit, and we will be timing to the presentation, and are encouraged when speaking to keep their presentation to the point and refrain from restating points raised by previous speakers if possible. And I will provide a 1-minute warning if you are close to your 5 minutes. If new presentation materials are provided, you may be required to email a copy to the legislative coordinator. Right now, I will call on our designated staff, Ms. Isles and Mr. Amro, to introduce the subject of the hearing, and then we will have an opportunity for questions. Whenever you're ready.
So today's public hearing is regarding the road allowance closure and land sale at Township Road 492. At their November 8th meeting, the Public Works Committee adopted a resolution to commence the process for the closure of a portion of the undeveloped road allowance for Township Road 492 west of Highway 770. On December 13th, administration advised the Public Works Committee that Alberta Environment and Parks did not support the road closure. Public Works Committee adopted a resolution to continue the road closure process. As per Section 22 of the Municipal Government Act, a road allowance closure must be completed by municipal bylaw, which requires advertising. The proposed road closure was advertised in the January 14th and 21st issues of the Leduc Rep. On January 6th, the road closure was published on the Leduc County Public Participation Opportunities webpage, as well as a notice on the front page of the Leduc County website. A letter to the adjacent landowners was sent on January 4th. Administration received 2 phone calls from adjacent landowners who advised they would attend the public hearing. Phyllis Schnick has withdrawn her request to speak, but had concerns regarding poaching on her land. The potential road closure was referred to the various utility companies as third-party referrals to protect their interests for utility right-of-ways. Buck Mountain requires a utility right-of-way agreement and forwarded the document directly to Alberta Transportation. Alberta Environment and Parks advised they do not support the road allowance closure as it prevents access to the public for Strawberry Creek. Alberta Environment and Parks proposed an alternative area to be closed that included the road allowance west of the most westerly intersection of the creek, as shown on the figure up there. The Minister of Transportation's administration advised they will not support the road allowance closure if agreement with Alberta Environment and Parks is not reached. Council has three options based on the above information. Option 1, accept the amended area proposed by Alberta Environment and Parks and proceed with first reading of the bylaw. Option 2, proceed with the original road allowance closure and provide first reading of the bylaw. Or option 3, deny the road closure request and administration cease the road closure process.
Thank you very much. And I will open up for any questions of administration related to the report at this time. Any questions on the report? Why was Alberta Transportation not in support of the closure in the first place? I know it had to do with parks, Alberta Parks and Environment, and why were they not in support?
So, Madam Chair, they wanted access to Strawberry Creek. So as you can see from Highway 770 there, they wanted access for both of those points of the creek, which is why they recommended west of the most westerly intersection.
So in order to access the creek, then people would have to trek through that heavy wooded area because they can't go on private land on that heavy wooded area, cross the creek, continue through a ravine and have, okay. So, all right. And I believe that it was Councillor Scobie spoke about the topography here being very difficult and that perhaps Alberta Environment didn't understand the lay of the land, so to speak here. So thank you for that. Any other questions for administration? I am seeing none. Thank you very much. Have we received any additional information since this was published?
Nothing, Madam Chair.
Thank you. With that, I will call upon the applicants. I have Diane Hunter and Jesse Weber. If you're present, would you like to come forward and tell us about your request? Thank you. Amro's just clearing out there. Come forward, please. Yep.
You could write your name and your address on the paper.
So these are just the applicants right now. There will be an opportunity for people to speak either in or not in support of the road closure. Ms. Hunter, if you'd like to start your presentation while Mr. Weber is writing down the information, that would be great.
So I just plug it in here?
I guess I don't run that part of the show. I'm sorry. Something happens there and people plug stuff in.
Okay.
Mr. Thomas is always there to help.
Fumble through it.
Put it in here?
Yeah.
I have my own computer if you need that.
You got it?
Yep.
All yours.
And just for the record, verbally your name and your address from both of you, and then we'll start the presentation.
Diane Hunter, address is Southeast 1549 West the 5th. And my name is Diane Hunter. Yeah.
Jesse Weber, it's 49168 Highway 770. It's the northeast corner of 1049 3 West the 5th.
Okay, thank you. Begin your presentation.
Madam Chair, so what I brought forth is a PowerPoint presentation, and I will figure out how to start it.
I click on the little icon that looks like a.
Sure. I'll help you. I thought you had it.
Thanks again, Mr.
Oh, that's okay.
Thomas.
I'm like shaking it.
That's okay. Take your time. It's not a big deal.
Okay, thank you.
Slideshow.
Oh, yeah,
From the
start from the
beginning.
beginning. Thank you.
There you go. You should just.
Okay, so The part that we're asking to be closed is from the east side, from the 770 to Schnick's Quarter on the west side. The east end has been cleared and developed by our neighbor, which is Jesse Weber. The west end has required access, approximately 10 acres. So our west end, which is our meadow, which I'll show in the pictures later, is what's in question and in concern for us. So our concerns are erosion to the existing access location, dangerous access to the east end of the creek, which I'll show below Mr. Weber's land, a high amount of erosion present at the east banks, inability to access the cropland for us to be able to harvest, and it's also a fire hazard if we're not able to go over there and harvest. So it has a negative impact on our farming and our ability to recover costs. ATV traffic on the creek bed, violating the Leduc County bylaw of number 3119. We've observed that. Increased trespassing and livestock. Our livestock has actually, we had 2 of our bulls now dead this year. We've had 1 shot, and so the day after I purchased my land, I did a survey.
Just take your time.
I apologize. Okay, identified on the map is 292A, the north of our property, and to the south is a road allowance. We were notified by the county as of September the 16th that there was a 20-meter road allowance, which we had not been privy to before. It all started when the Alice program had come out. I signed up for the Alice program roughly 3 years ago. I put in waters and I worked very hard to have the creek left as riparian area, and to be able to keep the creek free from erosion as much as we can and to contribute for the waterways. There's a 2-meter access path between the southwest corner and the back field. The acreage removed from the southeast corner is a 13-acre parcel, which Mr. Caland is present for, and that's where he resides. 20-meter road allowance from the Highway 770 to Schnick's Quarter crosses the creek, the east end of the property. If you look at the map here, you can see we have a gravel road off the top, the north, which has already been taken off our quarter, as well as there's a south. The road allowance would also take off a certain amount of our land, which I'm paying taxes for on the south end, which is the road allowance. And that's why, one of the reasons why I think in some ways for our property, I think that to not be able to have the ability to purchase back that road allowance puts into jeopardy our back meadow. The east end previously cleared, you can see the pictures here, where we had the survey done and where Mr. Weber has cleared the land, which is the road allowance here, to be able to put in his new fence. In some ways, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that if you look at this bank to the right, there is a huge drop off. There is zero access for public to get to that creek from that spot. And I agree with the road allowance to be closed because of the fact of public safety. The only way for those people to get on that land is to trespass through our portion at the bottom. So if you look here, there's a fence line. I can't really pull this up, but if you look at the fence line here, there is a fence line that comes down, and that's my land here. The road allowance, there's a flag that shows you both sides to here. So it's a 20-meter wide on a bank. And I think that that isn't reasonable for anyone to be trying to access to be able to have public domain. And I also believe that it's a very environmentally sensitive area. Strawberry Creek has many different parts of it that make it so that people can't access it. Now, our big issue, as you can see in the picture here, is we have a 2-meter wide path to get to the back. You see, this is a snowmobile path or a quad track. That is the only width that can go through here. If you allow more road access or people to actually keep accessing this portion of the road allowance, we'll not be able to access and have our farmland. And that'll make it impossible to get to the other side of our meadow. Okay, so the erosion of the existing land, Statistics Canada has nearly shown for a decade that ATV off-road traffic increases erosion. You know, there's a big problem in Lacombe County with this. That's why they've set a precedent to be able to close road allowances. And I know Leduc has started to follow suit. So that's one of our other arguments is to be able to mitigate the issues with farmland and erosion and impacts on our quarter. We've actually enrolled in the Alice program to be able to help and to support that. So I'm back to this cliff. There is such a big cliff on that creek, all around the creek. I just don't think it's reasonable to have them trespassing on my land to get to that creek. And we've had an issue with trespassing already. We've had many issues on our land. We've had a bull, which I also said last year, we had a bull hustled off our land. I have further pictures. I'm still back in the erosion anyway. So the erosion is a big issue. And then the inability, here's one of the back pictures of our pasture. If I'm not able to go back there and cut it, I'm not able to go and be able to control that area. And then we've got, it's a jungle back there. And then the ATV traffic, as you can see here, there's a path that crosses the creek. There's tracks at the top of the creek. There's a big beaver dam, which is already blocking the creek. And that's on the road allowance. So and it's not, as per the bylaw, it says you're not supposed to be able to plot across that creek. And then that's just going to increase the problems. Damage to the riparian area, and we're all working hard. Jesse, I know, has signed up to the Alice program, and I know that we've had people text and say they're going to do whatever they want on our land or on the right of way. We also have pictures here of the bull that's been shot, the RCMP present on my land last week. And then we also have pictures of people on Schnick's land. Our cameras right at the fence, and they were on our land as well, harvesting trees. So we've had people come across the road allowance, and because the field was open, and they started harvesting things, which none of us, we can't get trees back. And also, I don't think that's a good thing. And then that's more trespassing, and this shows the shock meat of our bull being shot. So we have a very big issue with this, with road allowance, access to our land. We already have a huge problem with trespassing. And then if you look at the map, I don't know how to go back. If you look at the map on here, there is access via 770 straight down to the creek for sledders. I'm a sledder, I sled. So I have no problems with people riding that creek. They have the right to public access of the creek. Do I agree with them having to go and drive up onto my land to go around the creek for all the, and we had a problem with people cutting the trees down last year. People cut 3 of those trees down and had a great big bonfire on the creek. So we've had a huge problem with this land since I've lived there. And I don't know how to help or stop the issues other than the fact of at least close the road closure, because it's going through all of our land and there's no value to the public to access that land. If they come below the bridge, fine, so be it. There's a nice path beside 770 highway and then get on the creek there. I don't think that going through Jesse's land or through mine. So that's my case.
Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate the time and effort put into there. Mr. Weber, you have anything to add to the presentation?
Yeah, mine's a lot more simple. All I have is a fence sitting on your guys' road allowance. I followed an old fence line without looking for my property marker. I found Corey Keelan's property marker. The path that I cleared is about the width of 2 quads. It was already a fence line, so it was the easiest path to clear. I fenced it. I do not have as many problems with trespassers as she does. As for quadders and stuff, I just bought it. I haven't really had near as long to deal with people. But as is where the fence lies, I'd be gladly to purchase, lease it, whatever you guys decide. That bank is extremely steep. No one's gonna be hiking down there to the creek like that. I can't even drive a quad up there. If someone tried to take something back there, most likely hurt themselves, injure themselves, then we're on for something else. I can move the fence if that's what the council decides. I have the equipment, I have the cats. I can clear as much bush as I want inside my own property line. It's just the fence is there. I'd gladly pay for whatever you guys figures do for that fence to have that piece of land. But as for public access, that is not a good idea. I agree with Diane. It's not nice, it's not smooth. And That's my only case, is that if you guys make the decision to make me move it, I'll move it. If not, I'll gladly purchase it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you again for your presentation. Open for questions from council, and I see Councillor Vandenberg had his hand up. Councillor Vandenberg, questions? We're not
Yes, can we
debating yet.
bring up our presentation and go to page 21, please, of the package?
Our presentation?
Yep, our package presentation.
Just, if you can just move aside, Diane, or is that, are we able to do
Page
that?
21,
It's
please.
happening.
And my question is to Ms. Hunter.
Oh,
On the Alice program that you referred to, can you let me know what size and what area?
I can bring that up. It's on the presentation.
Sorry,
It's on my presentation. Do you want me to bring it up?
but this is better to see. So whereabouts in and around is, did you set aside some property, some land for the Alice project?
So my picture is exactly the same, except it's highlighted where the Alice program is.
Okay, well, we've already moved it and.
Can we go
didn't
back?
notice it.
Does it just take a second? It looks like we've got the technology.
So in here, is this what you're talking about?
So for me, I have an Alice program map.
Oh, okay.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Yes, it should be on here.
I don't think we saw. Oh,
There it
we
is.
go.
So if you
Oh.
look at the bottom right-hand corner, that's all the land that we've designated as the Alice program. So we're not pasturing, there's no cattle going in the water.
Yes.
There's none of that. I put in extra waterers on our land. I also fenced and made sure that there's no access to the creek from our cattle.
Okay, so my clarifying question was to understand what you've given towards the Alice program. And I can see that the creek is meandering through there to get a session. For those who don't know, alternative land use service is what Alice is. And it is a dedication from our agricultural and farming community to protect riparian areas by offsetting it so that it's managed correctly for wildlife and livestock, that sort of thing. My question to you then is, and I'm sorry for the long-winded, does Alberta Environment know what you did here? That you've participated in the Alice program on this area?
Jesse and I have left that up to, I believe Chelsea Isles is the one who talked to them in the beginning. Nobody asked us until today whether or not what we've done. And both Jesse and I have signed up for the Alice program, as far as I know.
The only piece that's not protected by the Alice program right now is the road allowance.
Because it's a high degree of stewardship that you've decided to get into. And so, thank you. My question was, does Alberta Environment know that you have registered this for Alice?
So we'll ask that when administration comes back. Any other questions for the applicant regarding their presentation at this time? Councillor Scobie?
I guess it's just a comment on it. Miss Hunter invited me out there one day when she had her surveyor out there, and we went for a lovely long walk that day. And I've seen all this firsthand. Yeah, you walk down on the east side, you go down this little trail and bang, there's a cliff. And then when you head across the other side, you have to travel half a mile across other properties. The road allowance goes between two other properties that's being farmed and hayed. So for public access, they have to travel through land that is being cropped to get to that. And yeah, it just makes sense that this little path going through there is their only access to that big field back there. So I would definitely support this going ahead. There's access at both sides, direct access to the creek off 770, plus a mile over. There's direct access into the Strawberry Creek from there. So I don't see where this is going to hamper any access to the creek.
Just hang on to your comments for debate, because we're just doing questions. I know you've been pushing this for a while and you're quite passionate about it. Just questions, we'll debate afterwards. Go ahead.
Well, if you're looking just for questions, this is not a question, because Councillor Scobie took me out there. I was unfamiliar with the territory.
We'll do that.
So we'll do that.
We'll do that in debate. Looking for any more questions for administration? Thank you. I'm going to ask you to step back. You'll have an opportunity at the end of the hearing to come back if you wanted to have closing comments.
Can I take this up?
But at this time, I'm going to ask for our registered speakers to be able to come forward. Remember, you have to state your name and write it down on our list, your address, whether you're in support or not. And I have Corey Killand as my first registered speaker.
No comment.
No comment? Okay. Then I have no other registered speakers, so I will ask anybody in the audience to just put up your hand if you want to come forward, and I will just take you one at a time. Any other registered speakers who or non-registered speakers who would like to come forward and make comment on this for or against? Come forward, sir. State your name and your address and whether you're for or against. And I need you to come forward and use the microphone, sir, because we're live streaming and we want to make sure our residents at home can hear you as well. Sorry for the inconvenience. No, stop there. Back up. Back up. You can sit right there by the microphone. We'll move a chair.
Then, did you want to stand? or-
Yep. So your name and address first, sir, and then for or against.
Will Schneck, northwest of 15, west of 5th.
Okay, and if you could write that down and let us know whether you're for or against and what we need to know.
Actually, I'm wanting to give a character witness for the person that gives you all this baloney.
Well, you have 5 minutes, sir, and we want you to speak to we're not talking about the people who have spoken. We want you to address the issue, which is the road closure. So you're for it, you're against it, and your reasons why. And we're into your 5 minutes already.
I'm against it.
Okay, and you're against it because?
The characters that are promoting it, especially the lady that gave us the speech. I've been there for 55 years and never had a bit of problem with communicating people trafficking on my place. And she just said they were loading trees and trespassing and riding through it, our property. And you know what? She's the one that does all the trespassing and all stuff like that.
sir,
And she's the one that puts grain out to bring the deer in.
Sir,
And she is the one that's an outfitter. Doing this for
just
money.
Yeah, sir, your comment is this is not an opportunity to talk about the people. It's about an issue to talk about. I'm hearing you're saying you're against it because the trespassing isn't an issue for you. That's your point.
Right.
I will not allow you to talk poorly about anyone else here that's presented. That is
She just did.
No, I do not believe so. So if that's your comment, you're against it because you've not had trespassing issues, that's fair.
I'm against it.
Okay, thank you. Next person who would like to come and speak for or against? Anyone else would like to speak for or against? Ms. White, can you pop outside and see if there's anyone waiting out there that might be interested in speaking, just in case? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask for administration to come back up. And I think we heard a question from Councillor Vandenberg. As soon as Mr. Schneck is finished filling in his form there. Thank you, sir. So Ms. Isles, you heard a question from Councillor Vandenberg relating to the information to Alice to admit Alberta Environment.
Yes, through the chair. So when I request things to Alberta Environment, we don't give specifics. We don't give landowner names or personal information. We just give them the road closure and the location.
So go ahead, Councillor Vandenberg.
So they're not aware that the local resident has participated in a program that actually protects the riparian area of the said creek. They're not aware of that. And so they're making their decision based on just what it looks like from a satellite.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Councillor Vandenberg, you sit on the Alice Committee on behalf of the county, correct?
I did.
Is,
up
oh, you
until-
did, okay. So,
But prior to that, I would have been one of the directors that reviewed this file that Ms. Hunter proposed. And so that's why I know a little bit about the Alice program.
and at that time, Councillor Vandenberg, did you guys send stuff to Alberta Environment, or would that have just been an ask?
No, that's not our role.
Okay,
Our role is to take, to help farmers, people that own property, to protect the lands that are out there, particularly around riparian areas. They offset pieces of that land. They put provisions in place to protect that land. And the program then compensates them per acre and with a subsidized cost to solar type equipment and that sort of thing. And it's meant for the preservation of our aquifers, our riparian areas and so on.
thank you. Any further questions for administration? Councillor Smith, microphone, please.
Looking at the proposed road closure by Alberta Parks, so they can still offer access to the creek, and I noticed they take it well past the creek. Is there any movement on that whatsoever? Because if I'm looking at any option whatsoever, it should be just engaging the creek at that point, because when you're in the middle of the creek, you're public lands. So fairly short-sighted in my opinion of Alberta Parks and Environment, which is probably pretty typical, but is there any way of changing the road closure to address the issues? Because what they're saying is they're only going to support it to the back of the creek, which basically doesn't solve any of the problems or any of the issues on each side of the issue that people have presented. In your opinion, is there any way of going back to Alberta Parks and Environment and having a realistic conversation with them about the area?
Through the chair, I have gone back to them already and requested for them to reconsider, which is why they proposed, because originally they told us it was just a no. So this was kind of their solution to continue with the closure and, meet their requirements.
Okay, thank you. And again, this is going to be a hypothesis question, and I apologize. I usually don't do these. Do you know if anybody from Alberta Parks and Environment has been out to see the road allowance, to see the topography and be able to look at what it is we're requesting?
I can't answer that. I'm not
That's
sure.
fair.
Yeah.
They have not contacted you to take them out there to take a look at it. We have not. So we have no way to know if they even are aware of the location.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you. As part of process, we have the ability to override Alberta Parks and Environment. Is that correct on a file like this?
Through the chair, yes, we can, so the option is to proceed with the original closure. However, Alberta Transportation has already advised they will deny it. So they may reconsider, but they did send an email saying.
Thank you. Councillor Vandenberg.
So Alberta Transportation has advised they would deny it based on the recommendation from Alberta Environment, if I understood that correctly. Correct. So what I'm suggesting is if the Alice file could be sent to Alberta Environment so that they understand that the stewardship is protected and continuing, maybe they would have a different point of view on it, therefore affecting the point of view of the Alberta Transportation. It's a suggestion. Yep. I hear it's not normal. But in this case, why aren't we taking and presenting the information that is relevant to a decision that we have to make?
Okay, thank you. I think that's it should be sent ahead. I think that helps advocate on behalf of this file. Should council choose to go ahead with it, I would suggest that would be the second part of it, is that we do provide that information to Alberta Environment should we decide we're going to move ahead. Okay, any further questions? Councillor Smith?
If I could add to that as well, where their problem seems to be access to the creek. So could we suggest to them that access to the creek is still just at the point and doesn't require the continuation of it? If truly they want access to the creek, then that's to the creek, not the extra section that runs through. So that would be a consideration. I hope we could ask them to re-examine.
So those are great. We were keeping a note of those. And again, should that be the decision, I think we could also provide some follow-up with administration. One of them around Alice and the other one around access to the creek being still provided. Okay. Any further questions for administration? I am seeing none. Thank you very much. Final comments go to our applicants. Do you have any final comments on the issues? Ms. Hunter or Mr. Weber? No? Okay, it was a very clear presentation. Thank you. With that, I will close our public hearing at 2:20 right now. So the public hearing is closed. We will now enter into debate by council and council alone. Thank you very much. And the floor is open. Councillor Vandenberg.
So I know that we have recommendations ahead of us to support a first reading, but I think it's premature. I think that there's an opportunity to work with other stakeholders, and that is to shuffle a little bit more information around so that we have a better concise picture so that we can make good decisions. It'd be my inclination to refer this until some information is shared with Alberta Environment / Transportation and hear their feedback.
I am going to refer to the keeper of all rules. Our county manager, Mr. Coleman, is that a referral or a deferral, or what is your?
Did I say referral?
You did. So I think you could be referring back to administration to follow up and bring it back. I don't know how that fits here. Go ahead, Mr.
Yes,
Coleman.
Madam Chair, that it would be a referral back to administration to forward information, further information to Alberta Environment and Alberta Transportation. And then council could bring back the bylaw for first reading at a future meeting, once you have that clarity of that information. Realizing that we've had a public hearing, the public hearing has been closed, so no new additional information can be provided for you to make your decision, but clarifying with Alberta Environment and Alberta Transportation, the background information we have is fair game at this point.
Okay. So are you putting a referral motion on the table, Councillor Vandenberg?
I think it's what is it again?
Referral.
A referral to administration to
Follow up.
circulate additional information to the, as you eloquently explained it, Mr. Coleman. Thank you.
So we'll wait until the motion is on the floor, and then we'll take comments and questions on the new motion. Eight, if not later than.
I think that's probably a good idea.
Well, it's fine. It helps, right? Because these people have been waiting a long time.
And Mr. Coleman, perhaps a date ought to be added to my motion as well.
Just 2 seconds.
And I know we're copying it.
Yes.
And again, there was a couple of items that we talked about. This one only includes one. I would also like a letter to discuss access to the creek. Can that just be up to the creek, or does it have to go over 100 meters of the creek to be accessible? So that was something where we're looking for giving information that Alice is in fact out there, and why would they, again, their recommendation, why are they so far down the creek if they're concerned about access to the creek, which actually could move that boundary at the very least up for some support.
So can we add on to?
Yes, that's a friendly amendment.
So, and provide clarification as to their access points?
Just, I guess, what I'm looking for is provide clarification. If they're truly looking for access to the creek, why can't it just stop?
Right, because their option did not solve the problem that we were trying to solve. Right.
Provide clarification around and why action.
I don't know how to word that. I'm sorry.
So, Madam Chair, there's a draft up there. Really what you want is access clarification.
Access clarification.
You don't need to spell out the detail in the motion, just.
And you know, to the chair, you know what I mean? It's to have it well past the creek.
So if I may read the motion then?
Yes, please.
that Leduc County Council refer the item to administration to have Alice documentation and provide access clarification on the subject lands provided to Alberta Environment and Alberta Transportation.
No later than?
What is a return date for us? Because we are talking with a couple of.
So Madam Chair, members of council, we're a little bit at the whim of Alberta Transportation and Alberta Environment. I would suggest you want the information back and in a timely manner, so we'll stress that. But there's no point in coming back for council to consider a bylaw for second and third reading until you have the information. So it's a little bit at their pleasure.
I guess we're stuck on that. aren't we?
Unfortunately, Madam Chair, we are a little bit with Alberta Environment. and
The
Alberta
other option
Transportation.
is move ahead with a reading and kind of do the pray for forgiveness afterwards.
Those are options, probably not great ones, but you could
It
submit.
is an option.
I mean, at the end of the day, Alberta Transportation is the keeper of the road
Correct.
allowance. And if they are not happy with the process or don't support it, they will reject it.
Okay,
So
so I think we will leave it at that. And unfortunately, we can't tag it with a time. But I know our group, our administration is pretty diligent, pretty good with their follow-up calls to prompt that along.
Okay, we have a referral motion on the floor right now, and unlike a deferral motion, we can debate it. So any comments, questions, or debate on the referral motion? Councillor Scobie.
Just a quick question. So the options on this recommendation are out, are just totally out of
No.
realm right now, right?
If the referral motion is not passed, then we can go back and put one of the other motions on the floor. This is the motion on the floor.
that's correct. This is the motion on the floor. If it's defeated, then council could give consideration to giving first reading to a bylaw that either closes all of the road allowance or a portion as suggested by the original documentation that's in the report, and take your chances with Alberta Environment and Alberta Transportation approving.
Yeah, so that's the process. We have to deal with the motion on the floor at the time. Okay, Councillor Blaser?
Yeah, I'm gonna go along with Councillor Vandenberg over there. It's no sense going ahead and making a motion only to be turfed by Alberta Transportation anyway, because it sounds like they're totally against it. So we may as well get the information, get it right once. And if we find out they're gonna turf it, well, then I guess we're dead in the water anyway, so.
I'm
that's-
generally not a supporter of referral motions, but I will this time because I think that the information will be pertinent to Alberta Environment's decision. I really do believe that. I would also, try and invite them out to take a look. At the very least, maybe those photos that were provided in the presentation, so they understand the topography we're dealing with. I think is really important. The last thing we want is people out there injuring themselves, dealing with the riparian area. We know, as our presenter said, that's really bad for the land. So I will be supporting the referral motion because I think it makes good sense. And I apologize that to our applicants that it's going to add more time, but it's better to do it right and get the best result we can. Any other comments, questions, or debate on the referral motion? I am seeing none. All in favor? That is unanimous. So we will refer to Alberta Environment and Transportation, the additional information, hopefully have an opportunity to invite them out. I know our counselor for the area would love to walk that in the winter again, and he could take them out. Thank you to all who participated today in our public hearing, and I believe we will move on to fire. And we are on to 6B1, which is Fire Services Bylaw, Emergency Management Agency, and Repeal Bylaw number 37-19. Always looking fancy for us.
Just a distraction.
We try
Chief
and
and
charm that
deputy,
way.
and deputy, thank you.
Madam Mayor and Council, we're here today as part of the annual requirements of the provincial lemur for the review of the municipal emergency plan as well as a bylaw amendment. So I'll turn the floor over to Deputy Irwin.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So thank you again for having us here. as noted by Chief Lefebvre, within our bylaw, and I know we have this recommendation first, is it possible to review the municipal bylaw first? Like to,
That's fine.
sorry, just to flip them?
Madam Chair, there's a request from administration to reverse the order of the items in the agenda. So if you
Okay.
could deal with
Emergency
the emergency
management?
management
Update?
agency piece first.
Absolutely. So we are going to 6B2, which is Leduc County Emergency Management Agency Annual Update.
It's showing them this.
What?
It was
Just
the
tell us where you
same.
want to go.
The bylaw update, it just looked, the report looked, there we go, that's the one.
Okay, so we're back to 6B1.
Sorry, I didn't see that that was the one. up
That's
there.
okay.
I apologize.
No apology required. Go ahead.
So in 2019, we presented to council updates so that we were in alignment with the LEMA recommendations at the time, and that we would
Just
be
let us know what lemur is for those
Sorry.
listening.
the local emergency regulations that are set out by the Alberta government.
Thank you.
Within those recommendations, we had to meet the requirement to have a bylaw by January of 2020. So we had a bylaw that was presented to council at that time and was approved. In that bylaw, we spoke about establishing a committee and an agency of emergency management within Leduc County, which was done. And the agency has been meeting since 2020 and 2021. We had an opportunity to review the bylaw and made some edits, recommended edits within that bylaw, just to align a little bit better with the language that represented how we wanted to administer emergency management within Leduc County. And so today we're just reviewing the bylaw to see if you would be agreeable some of the recommended edits within it.
Okay.
So this recommendation is to rescind 3719 and do the first, second, and third reading of the updated emergency management bylaw. I have attached the bylaw.
Yep.
So this 3719 is the old one that was provided for your reference. And then this is the new version. So within this new version, we changed the name from Leduc County Emergency Management Bylaw to Emergency Management Bylaw. So it was just a cleanup.
If I may, emergency spelt wrong in the title.
Okay.
Shouldn't present to a teacher.
Poor guy that did well.
And it went by so many people. I mean, none
That's
of us.
okay. I know there's probably been 100,000 eyes on it, but I just couldn't let it go.
Okay, we'll make that change.
All
That
right.
means all those computers are accepting the misspelling too.
We then also put the bylaw on the new recommended templates, which removed some of the verbiage that is presented in 3719, and then jumped right into the membership and organization that's part of it, which now speaks to the advisory committee first. So this is the committee of council. And it states that as part of this committee, all the council members would sit on this particular committee of council. And then we cleaned up the language in 2.1C to talk about what would happen if in the presence of an emergency, we needed to meet, and how, who would chair that particular committee to come together and do that. So we added that if in the absence of the mayor and the deputy mayor, the council members present could also do so, just to give us a little bit more depth. If you think about what can happen in emergency, access to us might be hard to the people that you need at the table. We then went on to the duties and powers, not necessarily a big change from the previous bylaw. The biggest components that we rearranged the order so it had a better flow for us in how we administer it, and then just removed a section around payment of expenses because that's doesn't need to be within the bylaw. It's already an established process. So that section was taken out, which was 0.3.5 in the old bylaw. Then it goes on to talk about the agency itself, which there wasn't a lot of change. That's just how, so the committee is council, the agency would be operational, and what their authorities are when we are needing to stand up in an emergency and or what we do as an agency for the rest of the year. But we did change the language in section 3.3, which is the state of local emergency declaration of powers. Just again, a little cleanup of the language around how that is done. So if we need to call a soul, who has the authority alone to do so if required, and then how does the group come together to make decisions? So that's 3.3.
Okay.
And lastly, the section that we removed was a section on counselor and employee training, because this is described within the MEP and this described in the lemur. Didn't feel it was actually required within the bylaw. So that was removed as well to make it more cleaner and easier to follow. Those were the biggest changes that were noted to that. And the section on financials was removed because that does.
Okay, and this council actually worked in conjunction with you to create the one we're repealing in 2019, correct?
3719.
Yeah.
We worked, this council reviewed it, yes. And then we also had Alberta Emergency Management Agency review to make sure it met all the requirements that they look for.
So this is an update and cleaning up of the bylaw. Councillor Lewis.
I will turn into the mayor and tell you that management is spelled wrong on page 2 at the top.
Oh, it is too.
And it's very embarrassing now because we had 3 of us
It
looking
actually goes
through.
through the rest.
So,
You need new computers. I am putting new computers in the fire with a better word system so that they self-correct.
Okay, thank
All
you
right.
for that.
Okay, Councillor Vandenberg.
So in practical application, we have an advisory committee
Mhm.
made up of council, and then we have
Agency,
an agency
correct.
not made up of council.
That's right.
Okay, so the advisory committee says, yeah, we agree, it's time to stand it up. Have a good day, right?
That's right.
Pretty much. Okay, so I'm just wondering, that doesn't seem that efficient to me. I mean, from my point of view as a counselor, all you need to have is policies and a bylaw that allows you to do your job. Because even as so I think back to what's happened, the flooding in BC, and we watch that very closely because we have lots of friends and neighbors out there. But even the people, the personalities in front of the television were in fact experts that were talking. So I expect that you would be those experts. So I don't know why we need to have, this is just a question, why we need to have council so involved symbolically to do something that just should be happening on its own.
Okay.
If you, through the mayor, you're not actually symbolic, you are a very important part of that process. You
Please
have all
explain
the
to me how.
approvals, final, if we're gonna spend more than what our approved levels are, we would have to come to council. It's our job to keep you updated through the Director of Emergency Management of what's happening in Leduc County in result of the emergency. So there is a lot of authority that council does have through this.
So, and is that the Emergency Management Act? So that's legislation that says we're
Correct.
responsible.
Correct, yeah.
That's why we can't get out of it.
Well, it's
So-
not trying to get out of it. And I appreciate that decision-making needs to occur, but you're saying that we're an advisory committee, but yet we have some specific responsibilities when it comes to fiscal. That's the only one that I've heard so far. So in terms of efficiency, does this layering need to happen in order for you to do your job?
County manager would like to weigh in.
So the other piece for the advisory committee obviously is to make sure we have an emergency management plan, make sure we review it annually. It's an oversight piece more than anything, to make sure we're training, doing our jobs, all those things that we need to do through emergency management. And the other roles as identified is there's times in an emergency where you become the spokesperson, the political spokesperson, the ability to declare an emergency. Those are political decisions for the most part. And so you really look at the role as an oversight to make sure the municipality through its administration and its agencies are doing the things required to be prepared for an emergency. What has happened in the past is many municipalities created emergency plans a lifetime ago and everybody forgot about them. Nobody paid attention to them, nobody updated them, nobody managed the work. And councils were blindsided during an emergency when the province came forward and said, where's your plan? What are you doing? Why aren't you actioning this? And the council was totally unaware. It is not unlike the reason why councillors now are required to take some form of basic emergency management training. Because you have an accountability to the public and we have an accountability to you. So that's the advisory piece.
Okay, thank you. And all I'm doing is just.
It's a great
testing it.
question. It's a great question.
And I think certainly, once that permission's been given, I don't think we expect that we'll be all called back in and say, well, should we use the track hole or should we use the
No,
cat?
yeah.
That's an operational decision once it's been enacted, correct?
That's correct. And so that's part 2 of today's report is we've been meeting as an agency, and so now it's an accountability report to you on what we've been doing, because we say and establish in the bylaw that we will do that annually, brief you on our work, and annually have you the opportunity to review, make sure that you think we're on the right direction within the county to be prepared to respond.
Absolutely. Okay, good questions though, Councillor Vandenberg. You're right. We certainly don't want to slow anything down by trying to pull together a committee to ask what we're going to do in the emergency. So the recommendation is to give first, second, and third bylaw and repeal. So I guess I will ask someone to move. Should I say first bylaw is amended, or we know that the small spelling mistakes are not
Yes,
germane to
we
this?
can take some literary license. Madam Chair.
I'm looking for someone to move first reading on the bylaw. Thank you. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Unanimous. Second reading, Councillor Lewis. Thank you very much. Comments or questions? All in favor? Third reading on the same day has to be unanimous. Councillor Smith. All in favor? And third reading, Councillor Wanchuk. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much. And now, how are we holding you accountable? Is that the next report?
Yes. And I wish I had my mask on because I'm embarrassed about the spelling.
That's okay. You're 6 feet away from the chief.
So part 2 of the report, or second motion, I apologize, is to accept the first Emergency Management Agency annual report to you. That will have 3 pieces. It's got the actual report itself attached. So that would be the work we've done over the last year. Then it has the audit by Emergency Management Agency. They come and see us in December and they review all the plans that we have. And then lastly, it would be the map is attached, which speaks to some of the edits that we would have done in there. So you're aware that the map still is acting. So the recommendation would be to accept the report and the 3 pieces as information and approve the work going forward. So within the initial, first 2021 Municipal Emergency Agency Annual Report, there is an approval, mostly looking to make sure that you are okay with the strategic direction for 2022 that are noted there.
Thank you. How does this agency fit into the regional one? I know we're working with our regional partners. We've had a couple of meetings. So this is just our portion. Do we get an update on the regional activities?
So within the report, there is an update of where we are, yes, with the regional work.
Good.
And how we would fit in is if we regionalized, then you would get the agency report from the region, and then whatever pieces would be non-regionalized would be attached. But we've not gone to the point where the municipalities have agreed to completely new. Yeah.
And that work is going well regionally?
So in June, as of June of last year, 2021, we've sent out a couple of different invitations to the municipalities participating to involve. Not initially heard back, then they got busy with election and then leadership changed.
Yep.
But we do have meetings booked for March, so we're proceeding.
Yeah, and some of those municipalities had some significant turnover.
Yeah.
Councillor Vandenberg.
Who is and what is the function of the agency audit, the Alberta Emergency Management Agency audit? What is that?
So they are a government agency that is set out to make sure that municipalities have taken on the work of the Act, the Emergency Management Act, and are meeting legislation. They set out the LEMA report that I attached in the previous bylaw, which is the local emergency regulations that would come from Alberta Emergency Management Agency. And they come and audit our work against what they're recommending and what's part of the part of the act, and make sure that we're accountable.
So if I may, there are a group of individuals that have an office with a little sticker up there, and you do your report, you file your plan, and then they come out and do what? They then come and make sure it's in your filing cabinet? I'm just wondering why this.
They
needs to
read,
exist.
so they come out and they actually read our reports, make sure that,
You can't send it to them?
no, they come and physically audit us.
So we,
like an
as
auditor?
taxpayers, have to pay for more people to N plus kilometers to do what a lot of other people do, just do filing as
Yeah.
as part of their requirement to exist, like societies and so on.
Yeah, potentially. They're a provincial entity. And so they have agencies throughout all the different municipalities. But when they do come and audit, they do read the plans. They make sure that they make sense, that we've thought out what the process in that initial question, right? So when you stand up, how do you inform that? How do you make sure council is informed and aware of what's going on and makes the decision to declare or not to declare? Do you have that established process for how you would report to them and what's going on? All those pieces. So within the attached document, you'll see it's all check boxes, and they'll put on there applicable, not applicable, or achieved. And they're just looking, and then they give us recommendation as to what they feel we still should work on, because it'll make our life easier should we activate. And so they also go nationally. So they were in BC for the floods. They support municipalities during a stand-up. So we would advise them if we did stand up, and had to advise them when we stood up our ECC. They'll send support if required. Sometimes it's just operational, right? If it's overwhelming, they have a tie-in with the regional groups. So if you are really short on manpower and have a big disaster, they would then bring in the regional groups to help manage that entity from a management group, right, in the ECC.
Thank you. That's good explanation.
Are we working on our no's in the audit? There were a couple of no's.
So a couple of the no's are part of the strategic work going forward. Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That's all we need to know. And again, I'm just going to go back to Mr. Coleman's comment. Probably this oversight has happened because some communities, municipalities hit with emergencies, didn't have anything in place. And now we're all hyper vigilant about what happens in the next flood, tornado, fire, or that's all I got. Pandemic.
Meteor.
And
Meteor. So on March the 3rd, we will be hosting them to come and do the basic emergency management for municipal elected officials for yourselves. So it'll be a great time to ask them those questions, because it'll speak to specifically what your authorities
We
are.
will be asking those questions to them. Okay, thank you for that. We have a recommendation that council accept emergency management. Maybe I should let Councillor Smith read. Emergency Management Agency 2021 review of Leduc County Emergency Management Program, which includes 2021 Municipal Emergency Agency Annual Report, 2021-2022 Alberta Emergency Management Agency Audit, and Municipal Emergency Plan Annual Review. Looking for a mover for that? You don't have to reread it.
So before you go to that, I just wanted to make sure that there was awareness. I did send out, last year when we sent out the MEP, there was quite a lot of sensitive information, because the MEP is used as a document when we stand up an ECC, so you can flip to it and you know what to do, and gives you all the little pointers. Some of the information is extremely operationally detailed. Some of it is sensitive with passwords and email addresses and such. So I did redact them from this public version. I also redacted any work that was still in draft form that hadn't been approved at the level of the leadership. So that'll be in there next year for you to see. I do have the full version available, but what you have for public record is the redacted version. So just so you know that before you move forward.
That's fair, and we appreciate your diligence on that. So there, Councillor Lewis will move those?
Happy to put my name to that. Thank you.
Without reading it again. All right, we have a mover for our recommended motion, which I read into the record. I'm looking for any more comments. Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for your hard work. Thanks for looking spiffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council, for your ongoing support.
Makes me wonder if he mows the lawn yet. I am looking for someone to move us in camera for our last item, I believe. Councillor Wanchuk, thank you very much. All in favor? We will wait until we are in camera. Okay, thank you very much. Coming back
Telephone booth out there
out of
someplace.
camera, moved by Councillor Wanchuk at 3:22. And so with that, we have no items coming out of camera, so I will adjourn us at 3:23. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We are adjourned.